back. I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving a very special 1998 Porsche 911 Carrera S. It's powered by an air-cooled 3.6-liter flat six, driving power only to the rear wheels through a 6-speed manual transmission. It makes 282 horsepower, 250 pound-feet of torque, and this is the last of the air-cooled 911s. In fact, the very last air-cooled 911 to roll off the assembly line went to Jerry Seinfeld. It was, in fact, a 993 Carrera S. I believe his was Riviera Blue. This example in Arctic Silver is stunning, and there's such a distinctive difference between the older Carreras, the non-S, and the last S's, because they only made 3,714 of these. They got the wide body from the turbo. They got bigger rear rubbers, so it grips better. But overall, this is a proper send-off, a swan song, if you will, for the coveted air-cooled 911, which then became the 996, and the water-cooled stuff took over the world. People really value these, and the market has gone absolutely gangbusters. In fact, I don't want to say any numbers because I'm going to date this video one way or another, but right now, I believe you basically have your choice with the same money to buy a 993 RS or this. And this is a particularly stunning example because it has 4,500 miles. It's pristine. This is as good as it gets. This is both showroom condition and a fantastic driver. It's hard to find those two things. And these cars do drive quite well. For non-Porsche enthusiasts, this just looks like a 911, but for Porsche enthusiasts, they recognize those wide hips immediately and know something special is happening. In fact, this is what I think of when I think of a 993, and usually I'm driving something with the little basket handle on the back. This is a very special day. So let's take a look. Up front, we have a 17-inch wheel with a 225 section tire. In the rear, those wider 285s, giving us more grip. Now, the funny thing is, these Carrera S's actually have a lower top speed because the wider hips introduce more drag than the narrow body cars, so they're actually technically slower, but that's okay. Style is everything here. In the back, you'll also see this distinctive split grille. The other cars, the older cars that you'll see, have a single kind of grille that goes across, and it's such a subtle change, and it kind of harkens back to a 356 twin grille to me, and I think this looks absolutely stunning. This is my favorite angle, by the way. I love this sort of elevated top-down view because you could practically use these hips as a table. If you were at a Cars and Coffee, you could probably sit your coffee, but you wouldn't, although this one does have PPF. As far as I can tell, North American cars got these solid red taillights. Euro cars got amber turn signals, and I think the amber turn signals look fantastic. Luckily, it looks like a very easy swap if you were to do that. I'm not positive. Maybe there's some other funky stuff you have to do, but I do think that amber really breaks up the rear end a little bit, and it looks fantastic. But luckily, we're beyond the days of impact bumpers and all that other silliness, so this car still, even as a North American car, has a distinctive, perfect look. It's not compromised by safety standards. Oh, listen to that. These doors just open and close perfectly. You've got these great cubbies. I just had my phone sitting in there, so actually I'll put that back. These are some of my favorite door features just because the cabin doesn't have a lot of storage in it, and those little door cards allow you to stuff a bunch of just knickknacks that really get in the way. This also has these ultra comfortable sport seats that are power adjustable. And in the back, I'm going to leave that key in there just because for some of you that chime will be nostalgic. In the back, you've got Kinder seats, and you can fold these down, of course, into the parcel shelf. So that's one of the best things about these 911s is you're able to store some things up in the front. There's reasonable room up there, but you can also stack a bunch of things back here because it's very unlikely that you're actually going to be taking 4 passengers on any type of journey. Let's take a quick look in the boot. Back here, now we'll actually close this up because I'm getting annoyed by that. In the boot, of course, rear engine. And these are the days where you can actually see your engine. You can see the Vario Ram label on here. Air conditioner car. I know that the figures don't speak volumes. 282 horsepower, 250 pound-feet of torque does not sound like a lot, but this is outrageously nimble, and it feels, it really does feel faster than that. So don't get caught up by the numbers. Get caught up by the driving experience. This also has a spoiler that will come up at speed. There's a button in there. I'll show you a clip of that raised. I actually don't like the look of it when it's up. I think it looks so much better when it's down and sleek. And that's one of those funny things is the 993 Carrera RS is one of my favorite cars, and it's got this crazy biplane wing. There was maybe 2 or 3 wing options on that car, but the sleek look, no wing, is the look for me. Let's get in the front. I'll show you what's up there before we get out for a drive. And there you have it. They clad these out in this kind of fabric, and it's kind of fun because you can pull this all out. If you want to get to your brake fluid reservoir, any of that stuff, you just pop off all of these guys and disassemble, and then it's just kind of a funky thing where you look at the old days of how these things were put together. That is one of the last things that just feels sort of like a hand-built style of manufacturing. I just can't stop opening and closing doors. It's the best. So anyway, let's get out and go for a drive because this is a real treat. Of course, left-hand ignition. Now this key, it's kind of funky. These are some of the time keys. They do have the blade, but the plastic on these always feels like it's the only thing about these cars that really feels cheap. And it's kind of funny that they use these, but we can get this thing started up. Our center tachometer displays Carrera S at the bottom, so you know you've got something special. Over here, our odometer. I wasn't lying to you, 4523. And the classic 5-pod gauge cluster. So you've got fuel, you've got oil level. This gauge sort of means something, sort of doesn't. When you rev it, it's a dry sump system, so it's pulling oil out of the tank where this level gauge lives. It means something, but when you're driving, that's gonna go down. It just really only means something when it's warm at idle. So take that for what you will. We have oil in it, we've checked the dipstick, and it's actually working properly right now, which I love to see. Not all air-cooled 911s do that well. We have our temp gauge over here, no coolant, of course, so that's oil temperature. Our oil pressure, nice and solid. So if you're concerned about that oil level, just make sure you've got oil pressure. The newer cars had sort of these warning lights about certain things. So this one's likely because the parking brake is on. And then you've got a clock over here. It's telling us that our rear spoiler is down. Right here, sunroof. These move so fast. Even my 88 Carrera, I love the way the sunroof moves with such gusto. It's kind of fun. But remember, these 993s, they are sports cars, but they're not race cars. So 964 is the introduction of power steering. And the power steering in this is just light and supple, but I can still obviously feel everything through it. But what's incredible is just how refined, see, people are already sunbathing out here, it's proper spring weather. It's incredible how refined this car got. Beautiful low-end torque, and I will be quiet for a lot of this video so you can hear it, but it's just worth commenting on how special this thing feels. Let's see. It's got floor-mounted pedals. I should mention that. I forget about that sometimes just because I'm used to driving these, but for some, that is a really strange thing to adapt to. Always on the lookout for a Nissan Altima while we're driving prized possessions. these Carrera S's are slightly lower than the standard cars were. Not by a lot. I think it maybe makes a little difference in handling, but realistically, I think it just looks incredible. I mean, you're not likely comparing these cars head-to-head in any performance way in the modern day, but it does add a lot to the look to kind of reduce that wheel gap. Brakes feel a little block of woodish, that proper old school 911 feel that they still do retain, more on the GT cars now, but there's something about these cars that maybe at the time would have seemed antiquated, but those who knew absolutely knew what they were getting. And the connected feeling to a car like this, the more direct controls speak to a driver, speak to someone who really wants to enjoy that driving experience and not be insulated from it. But it's not so race car that you can't drive this to work and daily drive it and be in traffic in LA. You could absolutely do all of those things, and that's a really tricky balance. And this is where you can tell Porsche figured out how to balance that. That on-throttle grunt, I think, is what makes these cars so particularly special. And it reminds me a lot of the 3.8 liter, that beefier engine in the RS with the high flow heads. The front axle of 993s feels so much more predictable than their predecessors. I think one of the joys of driving older 911s is kind of riding out where that limit of front grip is, because as you get onto the throttle out of a corner, it'll start to push. Obviously, the weight is all in the back of these cars, so as you start to get on throttle, it's an exaggerated weight transfer for these types of things. So it'll start to push on throttle, and that's why off throttle you get that lift-off oversteer, which helps point the nose back in. When I drive these 993s, I'm always just kind of impressed with how far they had come with dialing in the pointiness and grip of the front of the car, because these just feel so much more stable than the older vehicles. We'll go this way if you're gonna stop there. Good. nice big gap for these people, because we don't want to be the folks who jump in next to emergency vehicles. And I don't really want to be tailgated by this Kia right now. It'd be really cool if you had like just the smallest amount of respect for all of the things going on the road. Yeah, that'd be cool. And he's doing God's work. He's repairing potholes. Love the way this engine sounds different as it grows through the range. It's fantastic. So look, I'm always trying not to be too poetic about air-cooled 911s or too precious about them, just because it's a little easy to get nostalgic and go too far and hyperbolize what they are. But at the end of the day, these are just fantastic driver's cars. You can feel everything, you can enjoy everything, they're well built, they're robust. There's something unique about an air-cooled flat six that you just don't get anywhere else, even if you're talking about Ferraris of the day. And I'm not saying this or that. Maybe the answer is both. Maybe you get yourself an F355 and a Carrera S, and if you're spending the kind of money that these things cost nowadays on one of these, this isn't a choice for you. It's not this or that, it's this and that. People with this kind of money have multiple cars. I see the comments all the time like, well, for one of those you could have two of these, or one of these and one of these and one of these. And like, sure, that's true, but I'm telling you, the people aren't making choices. They are just, all right, we're gonna go to the next one. This car's too nice, too good of an example to jump lanes like that. Oh, it's such a peach on the highway too. And that's the thing, like, this is just so much more intuitive and easy to drive than its Italian competitors. Maybe you want something that's a little more difficult or ridiculous. This isn't difficult or ridiculous. It's just connected and fun. And once in a while, you want to be comfortable. The seating position's fantastic. I have great visibility in this greenhouse of a cabin. I love these sports seats. I mean, good Lord, they need to just bring these back. I was in like a more new Porsche recently, and I felt, I was in a 991.1, and I felt more uncomfortable in those seats than I do these seats. And it kind of reminds me of the Land Cruiser, where I feel like Toyota's completely lost the plot. The 99 Land Cruiser I drove the other day, the UJZ100, is one of the best SUVs I have ever driven, full stop. And I think it drives better than my 23 GX 460. And look, this is not a race car. It's fully appointed. It's got leather. It's got this gorgeous leather dashboard. It has air conditioning. It has a radio. But it focuses on all the things that someone who likes driving wants to be focusing on. A great engine, a great transmission, fantastic brakes, a balanced chassis, and none of it is over the top. This isn't shouty. It's not flashy. It only means something to the people that it needs to mean something to. And you know what? Because we're not in the RS, I'm not that disappointed with this Mazda crawling up this on-ramp. And there's a big difference between modern Porsche culture, where you've got Macans on every street corner, because this car right here is what it used to mean when someone said, I own a Porsche. And I'm fine with the brand growing and proliferating baby SUVs all over the place, and they handle great. They're fantastic cars. That's good, because honestly, without those cars, without the Cayenne, without the Macan, the brand may have suffered, the brand may have dwindled, the brand may have died, and we always look to those cars as the ones that kept these cars alive. But this is the end of the time when saying I own a Porsche probably meant you owned an air-cooled 911. And that is a very special thing. God, I love those wheels on a Taycan. Oh shoot, no, we're not getting in that traffic jam with this car. We are going to carry on and take back roads. Old school navigation, no ways, just looking off the bridge and realizing that's not where I want to be right now. And you can watch as we're sitting and idling, that starts to come up, it fills up the oil reservoir. There you go. All the nerdy air-cooled stuff. I'm going to take this thing back to Bond Group and wrap this up. This was a dream come true. I have always wanted to drive one of these cars. If you've driven other 993s, I'm going to tell you, it's not going to be that much different than the cars that you've probably driven. And I think if you have driven a... that's the thing. It feels lighter than a turbo. And it feels more nimble and darty than a turbo because you don't have the front powertrain driving the front wheels. So I think if you've driven a turbo and a rear-wheel drive non-S, you'll be able to imagine. You'll be able to combine those two forces in your brain and kind of come up with this. But I will say, maybe it's just because of the condition of this car, the mileage of this car. This is one of the nicest 993s I have ever had the pleasure of driving. And I've gotten to drive some pretty nice 993s. Would I have this over an RS? That's a tricky one. I think the 3.8 makes better noises. I really, oh man, frustrating road. Okay, we're back. I think the 3.8 makes better noises. I think the larger valves in that with that high flow head is just sublime. But this is more of a livable car, so it kind of depends on the purpose. I don't think you would ever buy this and now daily drive it. It's not going to happen. That's not what this car is today due to its value and its relative rarity at only 3714 made. But then there's the turbo. And the turbos are just so potent. And there's a real charm to a fast 993 that's hard to overcome. So I don't know, maybe I'd still go turbo. I think the look of this car is just it though. So yeah, I don't know. This is it. I think this is it for me. I think the twin grille with the wide body, good Lord, this thing is fantastic. I don't need it to be fast like a turbo. This thing just feels every bit like I want a 911 to be. All right, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. And be sure to respect the cyclists. I've got a blind crest coming up over here. We want to make sure we're giving ample room and not just passing because we want to, but because it's safe to. Can't believe we got to say this stuff, but I try to say it as nicely as I can, because people in 2026 are very defensive if you tell them what to do, even if it's common sense.